T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man,
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes,
Tell 'em.
exclusive. Oh,
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with
what is good, everybody? It's your boy MJ up in the building. Welcome to Trap Talks New Breed on the Block series. If this is your first time tapping in, what is good? I'm your boy MJ. Do your boy a favor, hit that subscribe button. Your boy just hit 5K organic subscribers. Appreciate all you guys, man. That's what's up. I worked hard for that, so thank you so much. All you recurring viewers, recurring trappers, day one trappers. I see you guys in the early birds. I'll get to you guys in a minute. Appreciate you guys. But you know how we get things started on this podcast, man. We don't fuck around. We only mess with the best. And you know what the best is? The freshest and bestest. Rodents delivered to your doorstep. Cold Blooded Cafe is the number one answer for that. If there was a question, there was no question. But I'm just telling you guys, man, I've been going through Cold Blooded Cafe for the last 5 years. They are number one. And go check them out. $30 flat rate shipping. Shout out to Desiree. Shout out to Steven. Shout out to the entire Cold Blooded Cafe family. Thank you for your support. Shout out to John and Alex over at Sim Container. If you have eggs, put them inside of a sim box. Less steps, less stress. If it's a sim, it's a win. Thank you so much, John and Alex, for your support. Check them out on Instagram. Shout out to Steven and Ashley over at Focus Cube Habitats, PVC boat enclosures, Flex in Texas, all day, every day. Please check them out on Instagram. Shout out to Jesse and the entire Freedom Breeder crew. I just got my brand new Freedom Breeder rack. I feel like some type of way right now. I mean, I don't know. Am I on that professional level of snake breeding? I think so. All because I have Freedom Breeder. So thank you, Jesse. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you shipping me my rack. Man, what an amazing time. And it's always an amazing time if you're with this guy. I can tell you that much. My boy, Miguel Garcia, always evolving pythons, literally always having a good time from what I could tell. One of my biggest inspirations, if not my biggest inspiration in the ball python game. So I got to say thank you so much for all your support, big dog. Thank you for just spreading positivity across the whole entire industry, man. Anyone who's around you gets happy, gets excited because you're all about that fun time, man. And I got to say thank you for your support. Please go give him a follow on Instagram, subscribe to his YouTube channel, and go check out what he has available on Morph Market. Shout out to the entire AEP family. Shout out to my boy Alan over at Amazing Basins. If you are interested or wanting to learn more about these basins, go over to Instagram right now. Go follow my boy Alan. He's on fire, and he has mad things in the works with these basins. Shout out to my big bro Alan. Shout out to Blake Stewart over at Stewart Design. If you are looking to invest into your brand and you want to invest with the best, Stewart Design, man, he's helping the best in the industry evolve right now as we speak. So I'm telling you right now, man, if you really want to take this shit serious, and especially if you're full-time, I would consider going through my man Blake Stewart over at Stewart Design. Check him out on Instagram, SD Identity, and head over to his website if you want to check out more about that. So thank you so much, Blake Stewart. And then shout out to Mark Bailey over at Mark Bailey Reptiles. OG, triple, mad respected. I mean, I'm telling you, I highly respect this guy. Definitely want to bring him back on the show. But more importantly, guys, go check out his availability on Morph Market. He has a lot more to come. This guy produces nothing but the most craziest clown combos and a lot more. So check him out, Mark Bailey Reptiles. Thank you so much for your ongoing support, big dog. And shout out to the leaders of the industry, as I always say. My boy Rami over at Reptile Super Show, throwing the #1 show on the West Coast. Nothing beats a Reptile Super Show. So make sure you guys head over to a Reptile Super Show if you're on the West Coast. Anaheim's right around the corner. That being said, NARBC, what's good? Shout out to Bob Ashley. Shout out to Brian Potter for throwing the sickest show across the world. I'm telling you right now, man, the Super Bowl of Reptile shows. That's NARBC. So make sure you guys go check it out. When's the next show? Is it St. Luke? No, Schaumburg in July. So I won't make it, but I will be at Arlington. So yeah, man, shout out to Bob Ashley, shout out to Brian Potter. And then obviously, guys, as I mentioned, Brian Potter and Bob Ashley teamed up with Brian BARCZYK to throw Animal Con. So make sure you guys are heading over to animalconusa.com, get your tickets, and get ready to go check out such an amazing event that my boy Brian BARCZYK is throwing, partnered up with NARBC. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be interesting. You know it's going to be a good time. So shout out to all those guys making those kind of moves, bringing everyone together. And then shout out to Phil Goss over at US Arc. Please go over to the US Arc YouTube channel, subscribe, stay updated on current events, and please become a member of US Arc. Any donation helps. Please talk about it. And if you support US Arc, you're a real one. Shout out to all the US Arc supporters out there. And if you want to know what I have going on other than podcast stuff, or if you want to tap into my projects and what I have going on breeding wise, please head over to Instagram and follow me on mjexoticscartal with an A, not an E. Very active on Instagram, and I post a lot of my stuff on Instagram before I even go to Morph Market. So I just like to do things like that. So check me out on Instagram, man. I'm very active, like I said. And then follow the podcast's Instagram page as well, Trap Talk with MJ Podcast. Shout out to my Twitch viewers going up. Now, if you would like to support this channel more than a subscription, more than a like, more than a comment, do your boy a favor and send me any donation you like to PayPal at exoticscartal with an A, not an E. And if you have a super chat, like more importantly, if you have a question you really want to ask Sebastian, you know, Sebastian's only 5 years into this. And if you are in that same realm, or if you're just now starting and you have questions for my man Sebastian, you want to make sure these questions get answered, shoot me a super chat and I will read that question. We'll get that question answered and we'll keep it moving. Okay. So I appreciate all my support, all my viewers, all my subscribers. You guys are amazing, but nothing means more to me than my Patreon members. Shout out to my Patreon members, my trap family. You guys are my heart. The growth is real. If you want to become more part of this podcast, if you want to get tapped in behind the scenes, if you want to know what I got going on, if you want to just get more out of this, please go down to the link below. Join the Trap Talk Patreon family today. Come fuck with us. As soon as you join the family, we give you a link to the Discord. Then you tap in with all the trappers and the family members. The Discord has so many different channels. I think over 20 channels, okay? Reptile related, life related, everything related. Just go check it out. I'm telling you right now, my trappers, if you guys are in the building, I appreciate you guys so much. Let's make sure we get all the likes up for my boy Sebastian. This is going to be an amazing episode. So yeah, appreciate you guys so much, man. Who is here? What's up with the early birds? We got early birds? Who am I going to shout out right now? Let's see. I know there's some people excited. Royal Bama Reptiles, what is good too? Is this your wife, Alexis? I don't know. Blake or Alexis, I'm not too sure. Royal Bama Reptiles, Trap Talk, Patreon family members all day, every day. Thank you for your support. My boy, Patrick Rose, Living Oddities TV. I still need to talk to you about that name. I'm confused, but I'm glad you're here, Patrick. Trap Talk family member all day, every day. The homie Silver Cash, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. HP Reptiles, what is good? Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. The homie Deviant Glass, blowing the sickest glass. Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. Thanks for tapping in. My boy Jacob. Okay, guys, let's just say Jacob, very excited for this podcast. I think Jacob was on my bumper about, okay, he wasn't aggressive about it, but he did let me know, hey, this guy Sebastian, and he kept, not that I kept forgetting, but nobody reminded me more about Sebastian than my boy Jacob, 110%. So Jacob, Are you ready? Because it's about to go down. Let me shout the other early birds in the building. But I appreciate my boy Jacob. Go give him a follow on Instagram because he's definitely a Trap Talk Patreon family member, day one, management type style. My boy Jacob, thank you for being in the building, bro. Serpents, Trap Talk Patreon family member, all day, every day. Thank you for being in the building, Sean. Troy, what is good? Homie best dressed balls. Best believe it. My boy Troy. Go give him a follow on Instagram. He's a real one for sure. The homie Sunshine State Sulfur, thanks for being here. The homie Ryan, high as balls, posting some sick shit on his Instagram. Go give him a follow. Congratulations on your most recent clutches. And definitely a Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. Thank you so much for your support. The homie Austin Anderson, definitely a Trapper day oneer all day, every day. Thanks for being here, player. Trademans Exotics, what is good? Thanks for being here. Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. The homie Josh. Hey, I hope you got your logins fixed, man. Discord misses you, and I want to know what's up with those Priscina's eggs. Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. Eric's More Factory, what is good? The homie Barber J in the building. Team Zoo Dreams, Trap Talk Patreon family member, and my brother, what is good? Thanks for being here, bro. Julio, Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. The homie Jake Hole, I can't pronounce that. Damn. This is how you could tell I cheated a lot in school. I can't read that. Anyways, Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. Jake, I appreciate your support. The homie Wise Guys, what is good? Thanks for being here. Damn, the homie Wills, hella heat. Thank you for being here, play. You know I like that name. Carrera's Exotics, what is good? The homie Steven over at Desert Morphs, Desert Mojave Morphs, excuse me. And then we're gonna end it with the homie Clutch. Because just a simple, sick ass name, Clutch. All right, guys, thank you. If you're just now tapping in, we're going to get things started on New Breeder on the Block series here. My boy, Sebastian, okay? Because easily he could have, he's just on that cusp of being, because New Breeder on the Block, just so you guys want to know out there, what's New Breeder on the Block? I like to bring people on the show who's been breeding within like 5 years. Nothing more than 5 years, but within, okay? My man is right around that 5-year mark. Okay, but he is making crazy moves, man. He's doing things that a lot of people, like, he's approaching projects the way nobody other people are approaching them, from what I could tell. But we're going to tap into him right now. He's hanging out. So let's welcome my boy, Sebastian Walker from Showcase Serpents. What is good, Sebastian?
How are you doing? Good evening. Fantastic to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. I love your accent. Where are you from?
I'm from South Africa, Johannesburg. Left
Nice.
in 99 to go and travel and never went back.
Well, okay, let's kind of talk about when you came to America. What year did you come here?
So probably about 2012. So I went originally end of 1999. I finished studying, went to go and travel, went to the UK and stayed there for 12, 13 years and met my wife, who's American, in a bookshop. And she convinced me to move to America. So kind of 2012-ish, moved to America. It was never the intention, but life is life, and things happen, and here we are.
It's funny how things happen. Now, I have to ask you, before we kind of dip into things and whatnot, what were you doing, during your studies? Did you have reptiles, or were you interested in reptiles then? What was happening in your life during pre-America?
So it's kind of a crazy journey. So yeah, I was. So I was at university. I studied engineering, and I kept and bred snakes. It was how I paid for my university fees, my college fees. So for 5 years, I bred mostly American snakes. I had my corn snakes and my king snakes and milk snakes and some boa and some anacondas. And every year I'd kind of breed, 300 babies, and I'd have a guy I'd take them to, and he'd give me this. I'd give him all the babies, give me a big pile of cash. I'd go off to my college. I'd pay for my fees for the year. And then I left. I left South Africa to go and travel. I sold everything to somebody, and I stopped. And I stopped until 2013, 2014. And I never really thought about it again. I kind of kept an eye on it. I always loved reptiles, but I kept an eye on it, but I never thought of it again. And then I went to go visit a friend of mine who was studying on the West Coast. And we started talking about animals. He's a biologist. And we started talking about animals. And he said, I bred tortoises. I said, I bred tortoises. And we just get into it. And he said, I'm going to show you something. And he went to this cupboard underneath the stairs. A closet underneath the stairs, and he reached in and he pulled out a piebald ball python, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" Wow. And he goes, "It's a piebald ball python." I said, "I've never seen anything like it in my life. What's the story behind it?" And then he started telling me about the genes and everything, and like nothing. I kept normal ball pythons that were wild caught, and they were impossible to breed. They were like, you had to have some kind of mystical strength to breed ball pythons. Nobody did it, as far as I could see. And I said, those things are impossible to keep. They never thrive. I'll never keep ball pythons again. And he started telling me about it, and they're like, wow. And then he said, there's a guy you should talk to. There's a guy called Justin Kabelka. You should phone him and have a chat to him about it. And so I did. And here we are. How many years later? Eight years later, but kind of 5 years doing it kind of semi-seriously.
Wow, so it was that quick. So it went from that moment to like, here, you should talk to Justin Kabelka, and that's how it happened.
That's how it happened. And I invested in the Dreamsicle project, and along with a whole lot of stuff that he had towards the end of the season. And then it was slim pickings, as it always is towards the end of Justin's season. And I bought a whole lot of stuff that I was that I could afford at the time. And I've still got a couple of those snakes in the collection. Very few, a couple of them. And we've evolved and evolved since then. But really, we've been doing it seriously for the last 4 years.
So let's kind of take things back here because obviously, once you get a lead to who you should talk to, obviously you start doing at least a little bit of your own research, right? So I'm assuming you started kind of geeking out otherwise and started looking at other people's accounts, or were you just only talking to Justin? Like, what was?
No. I was looking at a number of people. It was a different time then. There were, Ralph Davis and people like that were in the industry and in the ascendancy, and it was hard to find really good information. It wasn't, there wasn't the range of information that there is today. There were forums that were quite loose and a bit all over the place. I mean, Ralph Davis's original website, like just trying to navigate that was kind of an adventure. Trying to look and see what he had available and what he was making, and to get hold of him was really hard. And so it was, I spoke to a lot of people. I actually phoned a lot of people. I went up to New England Reptiles. We did this, I paid for a visit. I paid my $10. I went to New England Reptiles and in the middle of a snowstorm, and we went up there and we had a look. And so I went to go visit a lot of people. Marcus Jane was very kind to me in Toronto. I was there on business, and I had a free day, and I just phoned him out of the blue, and he was super kind to me. I've never bought a snake from him as well, and I feel really bad. He was so kind. He gave me 3 hours of his time, and he shared he was totally open with me, and he shared everything. So, I am very grateful to the people that were very kind with their time, with their prices, with their expertise, and continue to remain so. It's the strength of this industry. What I love so much about this industry, and what's becoming more and more the case, is how helpful everybody is. What a supportive, kind community it is. Almost without fail, we all want each other to succeed. So, I did a lot of homework. I went to go and see a lot of people, and in the end, I bought a lot from Justin, but I bought from others too.
It's funny you say that because I kind of look around on my surroundings of who I consider my close friends are. And I'm, like my 5 closest people I could pick up a phone and talk to. And like at least more than half of those I haven't bought a snake from. But I mean, they've given me so much information. Like they treat me like if I spent, loads of money with them, but I'm sure that time will come, but it's never been the case, and not that they make me feel bad or anything, but it's funny how you say that because I thought about that not too long ago.
It's about paying it forward too. I think there's so many times in my life where people have been really kind to me for no return whatsoever. And it's about paying it forward. And there's a lot of people that I mentor and I help. And I don't care if they never buy a snake from me. I just want them to do well. And then the industry does well, and we all do well.
I will credit this industry one big thing, and that's there's been enough or a lot of right doing to people that make them want to do right to that other person. And I feel that that's exactly, I feel like I'm coming in an era where these people are now blossoming because what social media is doing now and stuff like that. So they are well ahead of most people, but they are like, if anything, bro, this is one industry where we have to pass down the knowledge. Like it's like, if you're really good at something and you have it down, like we need more of you. Like we need like the more you thrive, the more the whole industry thrives. Like, it's not that 1980, 1990 mentality where like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to give information to this person so they could, dude, no, like we have people trying to shut us down. So now it's like, it's not about individually just being good. You need to fucking teach other people to be as good as you are. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
100% agree. Somebody gave me an analogy a while ago, and I've said this to a couple of people that some people feel that you're fighting over a finite slice of a finite pie. The pie is only a certain size, and we're all fighting over a slice of that pie. But the pie is not a finite size. It continues to grow, and the more we put into it, the bigger that pie gets, and the more we've all got a piece of that pie. And when people see it all of a sudden, that as the industry grows, the pie gets bigger, the slice of pie gets bigger, and all of us do better. My success the people that buy snakes from us, seen them be successful. And Jake, we'll talk about Jake maybe a bit later. Jake's kind of the poster child for where this industry is going, and their success is my success. My success is Justin's success. Justin's success is someone else's success. And the people that buy snake from me, they need to make money too, to be able to come back and buy from myself, and then I buy from someone else. And we're all in this together. We succeed together in this, and we fail. Once we divide it, we fail.
So, I mean, before we kind of dip into the avenues you took into the ball python game, do you feel like you overall got more help than I guess dicked over or anything like that? Because if it's one thing that people tend to get before they get the good stuff, is they get bad taste in their mouth and they don't really get help. I came in, Sebastian, 2016, where like whoever did help me was giving me misinformation. They knew it, and they were going on a ride, for it. And luckily, because people like Miguel was like, Miguel's one of the first people to like kind of give me a good like direction on what to do, and like always answer my questions. I must have asked Miguel the same question maybe like 50 fucking times, and he still always answered it for me. Just because like just stuff scenarios when the clutch is in front of you and stuff like that. But all I know is like, to anyone out there who's not getting in more of the good, I could tell you the good does come. You know what I mean? You could just it's all about just finding what your purpose of why you're in here, and which should be all about the animals. So that's why I just had to ask, if you had any scenarios that didn't go on the good side, more on the bad side.
So I'll say I made a lot of bad decisions, a lot of mistakes. And I've learned a lot of sharp lessons from those mistakes. And I've made some tough choices to change direction and to think about things differently in the way that I approach this entire industry. And that was through no one's fault but my own. I was naive and I made mistakes. And I don't want people to make the same mistakes. Nobody intentionally led me astray. But I was very strategic about who I spoke to and whose advice I took to heart. I listened to a lot of people. I spoke to a lot of people, but I was very thoughtful about the people that I saw in the industry that had a good reputation and that were successful because of that good reputation, because of the quality of what they were doing. And so I intentionally navigated towards people like that. And they were all without failure, just very kind with their time and their support. And I was the same as you. I asked a lot of questions. You get nervous. It's your first clutch, and it's a semi-valuable clutch. You get nervous, and you want someone's help. And I get 10 texts a day from people on the same questions that I asked 5 years ago that to me were really important 5 years ago. And if I can help someone with that one question and it can get them going, and they know when to cut that clutch or deal with, I don't know, whatever it might be, I do it because I want them to do it for someone else in 5 years' time.
Yeah, well said. Now, if we could kind of talk about, the path when you obviously talked to Justin, your purchases were starting to be made. What was one thing you knew that you needed? Like, let's kind of talk about how you started building a foundation that you have today. Like, what was the game plan from the start?
So the game plan was not good. No, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. So what I tried to do, and the principle of it was accurate, but what I tried to do was buy as many females as I could that I thought I had an idea of what projects I was going to do in time to come. So I ended up with like 120 adults, all by myself in Washington, D.C., with nobody, people I could phone and talk to, but nobody down the road. Nobody came to look at the collection. I didn't feel alone because I had support, via telephone, via email, via text, but I was physically alone. I was breeding rats in the garage. I was doing the snakes at night, working a full-time job, and I just wasn't making a lot of progress. And I wasn't making a lot of progress because, first of all, I didn't have the time. So I didn't give myself enough time. I had a very, very intense job, and I was working until 4 a.m. doing the snakes, and I didn't have enough time to give them the attention that they needed. I was giving them 80% of what they needed, and their last 20% was not enough to go and breed the animals that I needed to breed in order to start making money. So I didn't have a plan as to what my long-term goals were. And in the end, I looked at what we had once Adam and I, so I'll talk about Adam in a second. So Adam, let me just give a bit of history as well. Adam and I are partners. We formed Showcase Serpents together. And I found him on the internet in 2015. I just looked for local breeders and I found him. In those days, you couldn't go to Morph Market and kind of filter for the region or the city where breeders are. And I found him, and we had coffee, and we just talked about snakes. And 2 years later, we both looked at our collections and we both got, these collections are not great for long-term success. You know, we had a lot of spider head clowns and a lot of giant normals and not a lot of plans. And we both looked at each other and they said, we've both spent a lot of money. You know, it's been painful. We've made big sacrifices, but we don't have a long-term strategy here. What are we going to do? And we've got two choices. We can pretend everything's going to be okay. And we already seen the way the market was going, where the value in collections were. Or we could sell 95% of what we've got and start again. And so we literally sold 95% of our entire collection, good breeding females that were great breeders, that were breeding for us every year and producing $500, $800 snakes. And we sold everything, literally everything bar maybe 8 snakes. And we started again. We took all that money and we reinvested again, further money. And we were then super strategic. We looked at a 20-year goal. So we've got, we'll talk a bit later about where we're going and what we're doing. But we retooled completely. And we looked at our 20-year goal and what we want to do over the next 20 years. And we literally got maybe 5, maybe 6 of those original snakes left. So it was not through lack of support. It was through lack of long-term planning that forced us to have to retool completely from scratch. And cost us a lot of money. It cost me personally, it was painful. Selling all those breeder snakes that have grown up from babies, like, pained me. I knew someone else was going to do well in a different type of market that we were in, but it pained me. Like, as we were shipping out, like, oh my God, that snake.
That's a tough one, but you have to like be logical. Like it's not about like, oh man, you know, I raised this thing. It's like, if it doesn't make sense, you have to get it to move out. Like this isn't about having pets.
It was so hard. It was so hard. Adam's one of his first snakes was a black pastel albino. That was a super nice snake. You know, it was like 2,500 grams. It was a really beautiful snake. And at the very end, he said, "Oh, we can't sell this one." I said, "And we have to." He goes, "No, we can't. It's my first snake." I said, "No." And we both hold each other accountable. No emotional decisions. So we are very much, both of us are, you know, no emotional decisions. And we hold each other accountable. And every night, we human beings are emotional, and I am too. I'm very, you know, I care deeply about things, and we hold each other accountable, and we call each other's BS out and say, we cannot do that. We have to sell it. And so Adam, it broke his heart when he shipped out that snake. I was like, oh my God, that snake's going.
Yeah. I you know, just recently, and I didn't really think about it till after they were gone, but I had some snakes that I hatched out in 2019 that I sexed at the time, and I was pretty confirmed that they were the sex I thought they were, right? And then I had a good buddy, Alex, who came over, and you know, I was just thinking, you know, I was like, some of these holdbacks that are about 1,200 grams, they shut off food. I'm like, what? I was like, that's weird. Why did they shut off food? And then I had my buddy who was sexing. He's really good at sexing the adults. And I mean, I hate putting pressure. Like, I'm very good. I'm very confident in my baby hatchling popping and whatnot. I feel like that's no, but with the adults, I feel like there's more of a trick to it. And I'd rather probe. But anyways, that being said, these like handful of snakes that I had that I thought were female all turned out to be males. And I was like, God damn it. I was like, this is, I mean, I was like, okay, I know I could get rid of them quick because they were really good. They were high, you know, high G stuff. But I was like, they were a big part of a game plan that I was growing up to. And B, like, I like these snakes, man. These snakes were really awesome. And but I had to do what I had to do. And actually I ended up only keeping 1 out of that 5 or 4. I can't remember. And I had to part with it, and it didn't hit me until like I looked at their tubs and I saw they were no longer in there, and I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, I was like, that's crazy how quick it goes by. But dude, you know, this game isn't for the faint at heart. No matter, you know, especially, you know, like the chondros and stuff is what taught me how to just be more like, fuck it, who cares? Because, you know, you got to admit, I mean, chondros, death is right around the corner if you're working with chondros. It doesn't matter. Yes. Something scary and fucked up will happen. Ball pythons, stuff does happen, but it's very unlikely. It's very unlikely that a freak type shit happens with ball pythons from what I can tell. I haven't had 200, 300 clutches, but you know, I've had over 100 clutches, and I haven't had any freak type shit happen on me. You know what I'm saying? You know, so I don't know. Like, you got to learn how to just not take things too personable or too like understand things come and go, man. It's the way it is.
You know, the ball python, or I think the reptile industry in general, people are loath to talk about failure. They don't want to. You know, they don't talk about sick snakes. They don't talk about snakes that are born, that are kinked. They prefer not to.
Problem.
And paint a rosy picture. And it's not always the case. And those that manage the disappointments and manage the risks really well are the people that do well. And I'm not a big believer in not talking about failure, because then you don't learn from it. And when people shy away from it and aren't prepared to talk about it, then nobody learns, and then people keep on repeating the same mistakes, and they get the same illnesses and the same issues that we all know we're dealing with. But a lot of people just don't want to talk about it. And, you know, 98% of the time everything's fine, but that 2%, I'm happy to talk about it, you know, and tell people the mistakes I've made and how we can all learn from it.
I mean, it's funny you say that. One of my best friends in this hobby, he travels with me everywhere. Shout out to Matt Summers. But this guy, you want to know what he did? Like, he knows what chondros means to me, and it obviously starts rubbing off on him because he wants to get into chondros. So what he does, he's so scared to fail and let me know if something bad happens, that he buys a chondro and establishes it for 3 months. Doesn't tell me at all. And he's like, and then he tells me, like, after it had like a handful of meals and it shed, and he's like, hey man, I got something to tell you. And like, at first I thought he was gonna say he's gonna have a kid or something. I was like, because it sounded serious, you know? And he's like, I got a chondro. I was like, what? Oh, he told me at TINLEY, and I was fucking really drunk. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, did you just buy it? And he's like, no, I've had it. I'm like, what do you mean you've had it? And I was like, you haven't sent me any pictures? Like, you don't want any help? Nothing? He's like, no, you know, I've been listening to your podcast, and I just wanted to see if I could do it, man. And I know if he would have failed, he would have never told me probably that he got it. And you know, and God bless him, but like, dude, you gotta share your failures, man. You got to. Like, it's okay. God bless you, man.
That's like the parents that buy a hamster for their kid, and they buy an identical hamster that they keep like in a separate, like in the basement, that the kid never knows about, in case the first hamster dies, and they can just go and replace it straight away.
Anyways, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have no shame telling people what happens in my collection, even on my vlog. I mean, I will say I had a huge influence on saying the reason why I recently bought emerald tree boas that are imports, because I swore them off a long time ago, no more imports. But at the end of the day, there's so much argument of like, you can't establish them, and I happened to run into some healthy ones at the show. Go figure, right? Yeah. And I was like, I want to document this. I don't care. Like, I could already just count, just wash my money away, because let's just say these things do die. But if they die, I'm gonna document it. I'm gonna whatever happens, I'm gonna show people, and that's what I'm doing. And one's eating, one's not eating, so I'm updating people with it. And I don't, you just gotta. Excuse me, Sebastian. That's why going back to like, you shouldn't hoard information. Like, if you're good at something, you should, and especially if you have somebody who looks up to you and is kind of mentoring under you, you should help them out. Like, you should definitely get them on the same regiment that you're on. And even failures, man, dude, failures is the biggest part. And dude, this podcast, I've had some gangster ass chondro breeders who just come in here, James Opdale, so just telling us the most horrific stories that I know it's hard to talk. Like, I could see the pain of coming out of their voice, but they're sharing it, and that's what I respect, because people need to know the realization of this shit. It could get very dark and very deathy very quick. So, but anyways, I'm glad you mentioned that.
It can absolutely, and the people that I see that really succeed in this industry are those that have the stamina as well, because those dark times come. No matter how much you plan, those dark times come, and you've got to have the stamina to move past them and keep on going.
Okay, so let's get back to the foundation you were building from the beginning. Okay, so one thing we talked about before we started, like, hey MJ, I want to let people know that I'm all about the recessives. Recessive, and it's crazy to think that, because just about a year ago, I hear Justin, I think when I was at his place doing a vlog, he's like, bro, the triple quads, this is the future. Like, this is what's gonna, if you're working with this stuff, you're miles ahead of everyone right now. Okay. And that's hard for somebody who has a lot of codon stuff and some recessive stuff, and but it's you got to make adjustments no matter what. So I want to know exactly like how you were adding recessives as you were going along. Like, what was was it just eye candy? Was it just getting information passed down? What was it?
Yeah, so that is a great question, and this is the foundation of who we are at Showcase Serpents. So really, it started from the lessons learned around codoms. So at the time, whenever it was 2014, I bought a GHI that was a good breeder male, and we did reasonably well out of it. But it was the same story that the prices drop by 60% every year. And I look back on it 3 years later, and I sold that breeder male for I paid $15,000 for it, and I sold it for about $1,000 4 years later. And I look back at it, and we did reasonably well, but I thought, how can I future-proof what we're doing? How can I make sure that nobody can produce 500 GHIs next year and just copy exactly what we're doing? And the only way to really future-proof is to move into recessives, and not just single gene recessives. We are working towards, as many are, double, but then triple, quadruple, and then five and six recessives in time. And that's a 20-year game. Some of our projects that we're looking at the moment, we'll buy in snakes, and we buy snakes from all over the world, and we will buy in to shortcut that by 4 or 5 years. But nobody's going to be producing quadruple visual recessives next year in the hundreds. Nobody. They won't even be doing that in 20 years' time, because they're really, really hard to make. And the beauty of the codoms, and we kept a number of codoms, is they fit beautifully with those projects. So if you thoughtful about the codoms that you add into them, and we don't reject codoms at all. We've got a wide range of codoms, but those codoms are there to enhance the recessive, the multi recessive projects, and really it's our long game to produce those long-term recessives. And we don't work with every recessive. We've got, I don't know, seven, maybe 8 recessives. And that's all we've got in the collection. And then a whole ton of codoms within those recessives. And we're just working relentlessly towards those double, triple, quadruple, and 5 and 6 recessives onwards.
Now, with that being said, you knew from the beginning that these were going to be difficult projects to tackle, right? Like, you already knew what you were up against. And so with that being said, like, obviously, what's the game plan for this is holding back to shit that you need to hold back. And there's times where you have certain projects where you may even hold back the entire clutch, I'm assuming, right? So, how big is the collection you have? Have you been holding shit back since 8 years ago, or what's going on with the game?
No, and the recessive game is a volume game. It is, you've got to have space. Once you start to hit the triple, quadruple recessives, you've got to have space. You've got to, in order to put a quad het to a quad het and keep some of those babies back and prove them out, genetic testing hopefully will short circuit some of this in time to come. But it truly is a volume game. And our strategy was as follows. Initially, we didn't have the money to go and buy the super high-end snakes that we wanted. 5-6 years ago, we just didn't have the money to do it. So we bought the best we could. And we bought females that we were going to keep for the long term. And we tried to produce the most valuable snakes that we could in order to sell them, generate cash flow, and then go around the country, around the world, and buy the power females and the power males that would get us going. So we keep back. We're very hard on ourselves with holdbacks. And we keep back only the very, very best, maybe 10% in total we keep back. And the rest we generate cash and we pour it back into the business. We've never made a profit every year. We take every dollar we make and we pour it back into the business. And I scour the world to find the snakes that I want, that tie into the projects we're doing. So, I'd rather pay more, and I don't want to overpay, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather pay more for that power male out of Austria that I cannot get anywhere else in the world than keep back 3, 4, 5 animals that's going to take me another 5 years to get to where I want to get to. So a lot of the holdbacks that we keep, well, not a lot because we don't keep that many, are the very highest ends. But the stuff we sell is not that far off the high-end stuff that we're keeping because we just don't have the physical space. We've got 120 adults roughly. We've got, and then the babies and probably 1 holdback rack that is growing up. And that's our physical space at the moment. And we are very much one in, one out. So we physically don't have one more bin to hold snakes. So the lowest, the weakest snake, not in terms of health or eating, but the weakest snake in terms of genetics, goes out, and the next one comes in. And we've been relentless when it comes to upgrading. Every single year we upgrade 10, 20, 30 snakes, and we're relentless about it, whether they're brilliant breeders or not. And a lot of people buy some fantastic breeders from us that we sell because we have to keep on upgrading. So it is this relentless upgrading, because we don't physically have the space. I'll talk more a bit later. We actually just bought a new facility that we started fitting out last week, and we can grow a lot bigger now. But up until now, it's been hard decisions. It's been really hard decisions, but it's been selling and buying has been our key. Upgrading the collection through acquisition.
I had an important question I forgot to ask in the beginning, and that's really as far as what were the things you were buying mostly? Were you raising up, like buying hatchlings, or were you getting sub-adults, getting proven breeders? Like, what were you mainly getting your hands on in the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question. We started off with a full mixture, and we bought, if there was a good breeder female, we were not shy to spend on the males. So we bought the highest end males we could possibly find anywhere in the world. And you could then put them to slightly weaker females and produce cash flow that allowed you to go and buy what you wanted. But we bought a mixture of sub-adults, adults, and babies. And looking back on it now, we've stopped buying adults because our experiences have been typically not great. The adults typically the females have not done as well as we had hoped they would do. And we are starting to head now much more towards, first of all, for security reasons, biosecurity reasons. It makes me nervous bringing in adults. The collection's quite valuable now, so for biosecurity reasons. And we are very anal about quarantine. But we're finding that our adults that we buy in are not always the quality we'd want out of a baby and growing it up. And so we are sending more and more and more to steer away from the adults and sub-adults and buying the baby we want and just grow it up like crazy and breed it. And then we know it's history.
You want to know what kind of gets me, I don't want to say wound up, but kind of grinds my gears, Sebastian? You want to know?
I do. I think I know it to myself.
105 people in the building. This is awesome, but there's only 60 likes. I am confused. Why are there not that many more likes for my boy Sebastian right now? We're about to drop some crazy knowledge. So can we please get the likes up for my man Sebastian? If you're just now tapping in, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. My boy Sebastian's killing it. Let's get the likes up right now. Much love. Thank you, Sebastian. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. Okay, so now let's kind of go back to, how soon did you get your first clutch? Was it your first year? Did you boom, get into it? Want to see if you're meant for this, or when did you work your way up to your very first clutch?
No, it was slow. It was slow. It took 2 years longer than I expected. And then this is what I'm doing by myself. It took 2 years longer than I expected. Then it incubator issues, and the babies were not great. It was a dreamsicle clutch. I was so excited. This is amazing. And the incubator gave issues, and I couldn't work out why. And I've still got one of those babies that's now 8 years old and 1,200 grams, and I'm still continued stubbornly. So I say I don't make emotional decisions. I've stubbornly kept that snake because I'm going to grow it up and I'm going to breed it. But there's something not quite right with it. I've got some kind of neurological issues, and that was because the incubator conked out. And then when I added my combined collections, it was slow as well. We were producing head clowns the first year. We had 3-4 clutches, and they sold steadily. And the next year was 8 clutches. And then, we're up to now, we don't have a huge number of clutches. We get 40 a year. For us, it's about quality over quantity. And we are relentless about trying to up the average selling price per baby every single year. So for us, it's not about volume of clutches, but the quality of those clutches. But the first few years were very slow. And you see the money going out, and you see you can do it, but it was slow. I mean, those years when there were 3, 4, 5 clutches for multiple years were challenging years, and it didn't go. It went more slowly than I expected.
And with that being said, how quick has it gone now? Now that you're looking at it, now that you're 8 years in, or not 8 years, but technically 5 years in,
5 years,
right? But technically, how do you feel like it's been now? Do you feel like it's flying by now?
Yes.
Now that you're 5 years into it?
Yes, 100%. So we ironed out all of the kinks. We've pushed really hard to become as efficient as we can. We've ironed out the kinks. There's always a risk around every corner. There's always a disaster waiting to happen. But we've got our vendors and Cold-Blooded Cafe. We buy a ton from them, and a lot of the vendors at the beginning that you were giving a shout out to, a lot of your sponsors, we support them. And we've got this now. We've got a supply chain that we're very comfortable with. We've got a process that really works. We've got biosecurity in place. That's great. We've got Dr. Stahl, who's arguably the best reptile vet in America, down the road from us, and we go to see him at least once a year or twice a year on some animals. So we feel that we've got at least a plan for everything that could potentially go wrong, and we've got a system that now works really, really well. And so I'm now very comfortable. This is why we've gone and bought a much larger facility. We bought a 2,000 square foot facility that we started fitting out last week. That can help. You can probably go to 3 times the size we are now, maybe 4 times. And I feel very comfortable now being able to grow to that size, because we've got the base snakes now that I think are leading, cutting edge. The projects on our cutting edge. There's very few people in the world that have the projects that we're working on. So I feel we've got the base there, and now I feel more comfortable starting to hold stuff back, because we've now got the space to be able to start to increase the size of the business. And I feel comfortable that I understand now how this business works. I've got a way to sell the animals through our friends at Morph Market, and we've now got a reputation within the industry that we sell a lot of animals without them having to appear on Morph Market. So I feel there's every avenue of the business now. I feel we have a way forward with it. It may not always be the best way. We're constantly looking to improve, but I feel comfortable now that I understand this well enough, and that I've got a long-term plan over the next 20 years, that we've got projects that literally will take us 20 years to do, that are that far in the future, that I feel, and I get excited by that. I like doing hard things. My day job is I run a software development company, and we like doing hard things. So Adam and I don't shy away from that long-term goal.
So it's crazy to say, it's everything you're talking about, 20 years, planning goals for these ball pythons. This isn't even your main gig. Like, you got other stuff that you do in your life, which I know I want to get into here in just a sec. But how much money did you drop your first year in ball pythons? Why don't we just get to the point? How much money did you spend your first year in ball pythons?
$180,000.
Now, would you say a lot of that, obviously, was that mostly snakes, and then a good portion of that was to caging? Like, did you invest in professional racks and all that right off the bat?
I did. I built a room. I built a shed in the backyard.
Wow.
I put all the heating and cooling in there. I bought all the ARS racks. I set up what I thought was properly, and it was properly at the time. There were mistakes made, but I thought it was the best I could do. And it was 180 Ks worth of snakes and probably 30 Ks worth of infrastructure. And that was a lot of money to me. It still is a lot of money to me, a lot of money. And, I convinced my wife. I sat with my wife and I said, I can do this. We can do it. I can make a business out of it. And she said, are you sure? And I said, I'm sure. And of those snakes that I bought at the time, probably 10% ever bred, maybe 20% ever bred. And I never came close to selling them for what I paid for them in the end. And it was absolutely the right decision to go and sell them all and retool completely. But yeah, it was a lot of money. And I still look back on it and go, I'm not sure what I would have done differently if I'd known at the time, but it was a lot of money at the time.
It's a lot of money now. I'm definitely spending the most I've ever spent this year, because it's all because of money I made last year and money I'm continuing to make, right? So I'm just like you said, I put anything I make off the snakes, I put right back into snakes. It's automatic. But it's crazy to think the amount. Like, if you would have, I remember like staring at a snake for $300 on Craigslist, wondering like, what am I going to do? How do I come up with this money? Like, literally, it was what, five years ago, 2016. I was looking at this snake, and my wife's like, "I'll help you do it. I don't give a shit." And I'm like, "Wow, really?" And that was like the push. You know what I'm saying? And now I can't talk figures because my wife is watching, but I'm spending just the most stupidest shit. And I know this is just the beginning, because I have plans too. And things are they're not slowing down anytime soon at the trap. Things are fucking booming here on all different types of species projects. But anyways, the building, like, that's my biggest thing. I don't own the house I'm at yet. I could be here longer if I want to, but I'm looking to buy a house. Buying the house is not ideal right now. It's really bad to buy a house in California. Almost anywhere, it's impossible to buy a house. So I'm good where I'm at right now. So expanding is not what I can do at this moment. But I do know if I do buy that place and there's property with no building, I'm going to want to build something like that's. I already have that. Like that can happen quick. Like things can move quick. So I have to ask you questions about this build that you did. First off, how did you come up with the plans? Like, did you talk to Justin or somebody to give you an idea what to build, or how did you come up with the actual format, the blueprints to the building that you made?
So it's not actually a building; it's the basement of a house. So we bought a house in Northern Virginia, and it's the basement. And I did exactly that. We visited Justin about a month ago. I said, can we come and look at your facility? And would you share with us what you did and what you do differently as well?
Right.
And he was, as always, very open and honest. And we took some of his ideas, some of our own, and we've now got a blueprint for what we're going to build. And we started with it already, be ready in about three months' time. And no doubt we'll make mistakes again. But, to find a house that was somewhat affordable in Northern Virginia where we could actually keep the snakes as well was really hard, really, really hard. And it stretched the business and stretch Adam and us significantly for probably years to come. But to your point, the faith in the business, it feels when I first started, it felt as if it was still a little bit of a niche industry, and I wouldn't say it wasn't stable, but it had its peaks and troughs, and everyone was always, every year the ball pythons are going to crash every year, and I believed it. As a newbie, I was really nervous. I was spending that amount of money. I just like, if it all crashes, what the heck am I going to do? And the industry's matured now to such a stage where it no longer is an unstable industry. It's a very mature industry that's only becoming more mature and more stable. And we sell every year. We produce 300 babies a year, and probably 60% of the people we sell to are newbies getting in. And those people are not spending small amounts of money. They're buying 4 or 5 snakes, they're spending $20,000, $30,000. And they're breeding those snakes 2 years later. And they are making similar amounts of money back again because they're buying those double and triple and quadruple recessives, and the value, they hold their value. And those people are making their money back. And that would not have happened 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. We're being really hard to have made your money back. If you had bought a Coral Glow male for $30,000 in 2014, to make your money back would have been hard. The price would have dropped so precipitously. It would have been hard. You would have been absolutely laser focused. Whereas now I don't feel the pressure. I don't feel the pressure to make use of that $20,000 male that we just bought, to use him next year because he's going to be worth $2,000 in 3 years' time. I don't feel that pressure. I feel that we can grow them up at a reasonable pace, and that the market will continue to be there because no one is going to produce, Desert Ghost Clown Pieds in volume in 2023.
Right. Crazy. Now, with that, if we can kind of talk about, the first year obviously was all investment, right? And then second year was when you got that first clutch, right? Am I right? Second year.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming second year all investments as well, right?
All of it. Every year is all investments. Last year was all investments. We certainly sold a lot, and the turnover was starting to become a reasonable sized business now. But we literally took every dollar and put it back in and more. We've never taken money out of the business ever, and we just reinvest every single year. Each year we can reinvest more because we're generating more, and it starts to become self-fulfilling. And I see with the cost of the fit out this coming year and the animals we want to buy this year, and the animals we now are more comfortable buying that we wouldn't have been 3 years ago because it would give me heartburn to spend that amount of money. We now this year feel a lot more comfortable buying those animals than we did last year, and we reinvest every dollar. Every single dollar goes back in, and hopefully in 10 years time, maybe in 10 years time, we're still doing that. Maybe we are. I don't know.
Now, but, this is the way, because a lot of people who come in here dropping over 100K into the ball pythons, for the most part, want a quick turnaround at least within 5 years. They want to see something, right? And sure, I guess at that point you could take some out and do some, but why? That's if you're in this, you have other things going on, and you want to come in here dropping over 100K. this is the best thing you can do is continue just to keep putting things back into the business, back. I mean, it's like it should just be repetitive to the point where, you know, because like you said, you're on your way to be making shit that most people won't be able to make at all, period. I mean, I'm sure they will at some point, but it's going to take years for a lot of people. Huh?
Eventually people will be able to. But you know, bills have to be paid. You know, rent, a mortgage, and you know, the kids need to eat apparently. So you know, they do need to be. You know, bills need to be paid. But I live, and Adam does too, you know, a pretty frugal life. We don't waste money, and we're pretty careful about what we do. We're not big spenders, and I love being able to put as much as we possibly can back into that. In fact, not much. We put all back in. We both got day jobs, and we earn salaries elsewhere. But that has its own issues. You know, Adam's regularly texting me at 3 o'clock in the morning saying I'm doing a big feeding in the following 8, and I think this is gravid, and he has an ovulation, and you know, regularly 3 o'clock in the morning he's up to do his day job at 8 in the morning, and off he goes to do his day job, and it's hard. It's really hard to do that. You know, and I'm thankful every single day. You know, I do the social media, and I do the sales, and I go and help with the feeding from time to time. You know, Adam does, you know, 98% of the feeding, and you know, it makes an extremely strong partnership. I've got all the respect in the world for the breeders that work full-time jobs. They do all their social media, they do all their sales, they do all their marketing, they do all the shows, they do all the cleaning, they do all the feeding, they do all the rodents, etc. That is fucking hard.
It's hard. It is hard.
And I've got all the respect for people that are successful like that. And you've got young kids, and you've got family, and life's challenging as it is already. A lot of respect for the people that are successful there. And so I am eternally grateful to have Adam in my life as my business partner with this, with someone who thinks the same way as I do, and has the same work ethic as I do. I'm eternally grateful.
I could tell you right now, you know, there are people out there that keep jobs and a bunch of other stuff and reptiles, but not all of them do it right. I could tell you that. Like, you know, I got to tell you right now that there are people that are devoted to this shit. One person in particular, Marshall Mendez. Shout out to my boy Marshall Mendez. But Marshall Mendez, one of the nicest collections I went to go visit diversity-wise. And you would think, like, you know, with the shit that he's producing and whatnot, like, you know, do you do this full time? And no, not at all. He has a full-time job, and you know, he also has a rodent facility. He does it all. And refuses to give up his job. You know, he told me there's mornings where he's putting his boots on. He's like, and he does not want to go to work. Like, yeah, like how there's times where he thinks about it, and he's like, I could just fuck this shit and just do the snakes. But he does it. He has that mentality, or that drive in him that makes him just not want to give something that makes the snakes even easier to keep when you have a job with a good income like that. You know what I'm saying? But you gotta have that in you, bro. Like, it's not something you teach. It's like this, you know, when you're meant for this game, when nothing stops you, when you could just, it doesn't matter if you have 5 babies. It doesn't matter if you have 2-3 jobs. If you really want to be about this fucking game, you have longevity in your mind, nothing will stop you. You will be up at 2-3 a.m. and then go to work at 8 a.m. like a savage, and you'll make it happen, because you know what's driving you? The results that you're going to get off the production. That you're fucking
exactly right. Exactly right. I'll go shout to Marcel Mendes too. Marcel Mendes was one of the original guys that was so kind to me as well. You know, I eventually harassed him enough until he sold me a ultramale clown, which he still got, and she still breeds every couple of years for us. And I've literally bought one snake from him ever, and he's also been so kind with his advice and his thoughts and everything else. I'm a massive fan of his. I've never met him. I need to go out and see his new facility and get some inspiration from him. But he's been awesome to us.
Now, if you kind of refresh my memory, where you based out of, Sebastian?
Northern Virginia. So at the moment, Alexandria, soon to be Fairfax County, up near Dallas Airport.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And you've been established here since you came to America. Like, you've always been in Virginia?
No. Start off in Boston, then DC, and then I actually live in Baltimore. So I live in Baltimore, and the collection is with Adam at his house in Northern Virginia. So I go and spend a couple of days a week there, and I drive down through Northern Virginia traffic, which is a joy. I drive down to see Adam a couple of days a week, and we kind of plan and strategize and clean and work out of his house together. You know, and we've kept it up until now. We've kept it, maybe 5 people have visited us ever. And that's been somewhat strategic in that, you know, we're kind of nervous of having people we don't know come and visit the collection. And that's going to change with our new facility. We'll have security that will make us a lot more comfortable. I want to make it so that people can come and visit. You know, we'll be 10 minutes from Dallas Airport. We want people to come and visit us. Give us 6 months, let us get set up and come and visit us, and we will share openly and honestly what we're doing and how we think about things and how we're going about things. So, you know, in time, we'll certainly open up the facility to allow people to come and visit. We've kept ourselves, you know, we've kept our address and everything very quiet up until now for security reasons, but that is going to change with the new facility.
Got an idea? You ready for my idea?
Please do. Shout.
We don't tell anybody quite yet when this grand opening is. And we do it when I fly in, and we do it we do our round 2 in-person podcast, and then we drop it like it's hot, and then boom.
I would love that. Seriously, I'd love that. Let's do it. We'll be ready in 6 months' time, maybe perfect. Less. Let's seriously done, locked in, 100%. Now, I would love that.
I want to talk more about Adam, if you don't mind, Sebastian.
Sure.
Because if it's one thing I know. When you're like, even if you're familiar with keeping reptiles, when you go to a mass production size, like when you're trying to keep a lot of reptiles, it's a whole different ballgame. You got to make sure a lot of things dialed in and whatnot. I know I went through a lot of fucking trial and errors, man. So what's Adam's background? Did he really help you with making sure the temperatures are dialed in? Like, is he really that guy also, as far as making sure everything is up to par as far as, you know, the upkeep for the animal?
Yeah, 100%. So we both got a little bit of OCD.
You gotta have OCD. Dude, OCD helps you out in this game. You gotta have OCD. You have to.
You've actually got to. That attention to detail. That attention to detail is key. And we've got slightly different OCD. Like the things he cares about more, I care about less, and things he cares about more, I care about less. So, but that attention to detail and the ability, Adam has got an ability to get snakes to eat and feed snakes and grow snakes like nobody I've ever known. Right. He is obsessive about it. And he just gets those. No, if a snake doesn't want to eat, like if Adam can't get a snake to eat, it really doesn't want to eat. He can get, you know, and we very much are a frozen thawed facility as well. And there's a whole debate around that, but we are a frozen thawed facility because we just don't have the space to breed rodents. It just is something that we can't do. And to get the volume of rodents we need.
Wow. So you're all frozen thawed. That's interesting. That's also more work.
well, we're 98% frozen thawed. So there are, and previously, if an animal would not convert, we bought a Desert Ghost clown female from somebody 2 years ago, and the snake would not convert, and we eventually sent it back. And I look back on it like, damn, we should not have sent that snake back, because that snake is now bred for that person. But we sent it back because we were just not going to breed rodents. And I've now got a couple of vendors, and this is what I was speaking about earlier, that our supply chain is now in place. We've got 3 people that breed almost exclusively for us in the local area. They're within an hour's drive, and they breed almost just for us. They've almost formed their own little businesses on the back of what we're doing. And they come and deliver the rodents. They deliver like 50 live rodents to us a week to feed babies, etc. And then the rest they give us frozen thawed. And that supply chain has been critical, because to get live rodents in Northern Virginia, DC area is almost impossible. So building that in place has helped. And now we've got 2% of our snakes on live. You know, it does actually, you know, we have kept back adults that are on live only. But Adam will just he'll take a massive metal catering bin. He'll defrost 75 medium-sized rats, and he just feeds them off, bang, 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 bang. And so it sounds like more work, but actually the way he does it and the way he's got those snakes to eat frozen thawed, actually probably in the end now actually probably saves us time in many ways. But certainly there's no clean your rodents, which I did for, you know, in South Africa, I grew all my own rodents, and certainly when I was in DC, grew all my own rodents, and I don't miss it. I'll be honest.
I mean, honestly, like I don't miss it at all. I mean, I appreciate what it taught me. Like I bred rodents and did my own thing for like almost 3 years until I realized a lot of my frustration and a lot of my like wanting to stop was coming from the fucking rodents, because the rodents was just like, man, you know what I mean? It was no, you know, and like I always talk about this, and if you didn't know this, Sebastian, I did the one thing which nobody should do, and I bred the rodents within the same room of my collection.
Yeah.
So anytime there was an escape, there was a fucking big ordeal. Like it wasn't something
disaster. I know.
I could not go to sleep. Like there's no way I could let that like thing just cruise my room. Like it was so bad. But anyways, I go ahead.
And the moment they escape, they go feral as well. Within like 20 minutes, they're totally feral and they go wild. And I've spent days and days and days trying to catch one single rodent in a snake room. And I just, for us, and this is what, and I always preface when I give people our thoughts on what we do, I say that this is what has worked for us. This is our plan, what's worked for us. It may not work for everybody else, but this is what we do. And this is my logic behind what we're doing. But for us, the time we spent growing up and feeding and cleaning rodents wasn't worth the eventual outcome. And so now we've got these 3 vendors, or these 3 people that breed exclusively for us. They make a business out of it. We get regular supply. We buy frozen thawed. We support Cold Blooded Cafe and a couple of other people. We continue supporting their business. It works for us. The snakes thrive on the frozen thawed. 98% of them thrive on frozen thawed. And then we convert the babies to frozen thawed, and that sells us a lot of babies. There's a lot of people that live in apartments that want a snake on frozen thawed. And we do feeding videos on most of them. And we'll just like hold tongs then, or take a frozen thawed, and take a video and put it on to Morph Market. And the people know that that truly is a frozen thawed eater. And probably 20% of people that buy from us, they buy from us because they say, because I know that snake's on frozen thawed.
And man, I'm so blessed because I have the exact same thing what you're saying. I have probably 60-70% of my collection on frozen thawed, and then I have the 30-ish% that's on live, and a lot of that is the younger stuff, like, you know, but for the most part it's stuff that could take either or, you know, like the way I establish my babies is I feed it maybe 1, no more than 2 live hopper, or last year I've been doing rat pups. I mean, I talked to what's her name, Nicole from Canadian Regis, or for Canadian Regis Pythons in Canada, really gangster ass little girl. She was I don't mean to call her a little girl. I forget how old she is. She looks young. But anyways, she was like, yeah, I start everything off rat pups. I do 0 mice. And I had a couple like picky eaters as she was telling me this. And I was like, that's weird. I was like, you go straight to rats? I was like, I've done that before, but I've had better luck with the hoppers. But as soon as she told me that, I offered those 2 picky eaters rat pup, and they fucking smashed
and they
it.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I also realized this too, and I can't wait to bring her back on because I'm curious. I've hatched some small ball pythons, okay? And I don't know if a rat pup's the idea. Maybe she goes a rat pink, but I still rather want to stick to my OG regiment where it's 2 hoppers. Or if I feel like it's that striky, I'll go 1 hopper and then straight to a rat pup if it will take it. You know what I mean?
We do exactly the same. 1 or 2 hoppers, rat pup, frozen thawed.
Exactly.
And 9.5 times out of 10, they take the frozen thawed by the 2nd or 3rd meal.
I've also noticed this too, and I don't know how some people feel about this because I don't do this intentionally. Like I've done this like by mistake, and I know this isn't a death or due type of thing, but there's been snakes that haven't been the strongest eater, and I skipped a week. You know what I mean? Meaning like I didn't like give them to them as soon as I normally would, or there even be a time or no, this is what it was. I'm sorry. So what I would do was like, let's say I have a picky eater, right? And let's say this picky eater takes for me, right? I wouldn't offer a meal that next week. I would at least give it another couple weeks to make sure it really wants to eat again. And I've noticed by giving those picky eaters sometimes just a little extra time after they already ate, they're gonna like be like, yo, where's my food? You know what I mean? And I feel like some snakes are just so used to you opening the bin and offering them something, they're just like, yo, I'm good. I'm good. You know what I mean? So just a food for thought.
And those good habits for that snake then become good habits. It's if it eats every 10 days, 5-6 times in a row, then it starts to want to eat more and more and more. And then it becomes normal for it to do that. And then you can start compressing how often it gets a meal and you're on your way. It takes patience, you know, with those babies. The vast majority of them, if you're just patient with them and keep on working with them, they do come right.
And you know, it's patience, but also just like know what works. Like let's say you have a good run and you're like, wow, that went really well. don't fucking do anything different. Like stick
Yeah.
to the game plan.
Don't
Sometimes
change.
some people try to do something or by mistake too. I remember one time, my problem last year was my first couple of clutches. I was running the whole room on ambient, and then the room was dropping to like probably 75, and I didn't have the hatching rack heat on. You know what I mean? So, and I'm like thinking, I'm like, holy shit, I'm not giving these hatchlings heat at night. Like they're getting like 75, but no, you don't want nothing lower than 80. Like you want to keep those things on the warmer side, right? So yeah. I knew that's where I fucked up. But you know, if you're OCD and you're just on top of your shit, dude, this shit becomes like clockwork, and it does become easy. You'll have your one-off situations where you'll have one that doesn't want to eat, and that's just nature. Nothing you can do. But I mean, I don't know. I want to say shout out to Billy because him and his crew work like that clockwork type shit. Like they're so man. I mean, the way they ultrasound, like they are literally professionals, bro. Like shout out to the entire mutation creation crew. But dude, the way they work at that pace, which you have to with that many fucking snakes, goddamn. But whew, man, I love watching those guys work. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and you know, it's about as well. It's about you get a feel for the snakes if you look at them every day, if you touch them every day, if you feed them every day, if you clean them regularly. You get a feel for every snake, and you start to know as well. You start to know their personalities and what works for each snake. And you then see you don't miss that ovulation, and you kind of adjust. To your point, you don't change what works for that particular snake, and you kind of know. You just know by instinct. Eventually, this one works this way, this one works that way, and you've got to be hands-on and engaged. Otherwise, you don't get a feel for the animals.
Now, if we could take things back to the okay, what was I going to go with this? Shit. Okay, no, now I remember. Yeah. So, as far as the way you look at, because one thing that people go back and forth on is how they approach the feeding for their animals, right? Now you do frozen thawed for the most part, right? Now, are you somebody that looks at your adult female and says you do not need anything bigger than a small, or do you offer mediums? How do you approach the feeding side? Based off what you've been experiencing.
Yeah, a lot of controversy around this topic, around power feeding and everything else. So here's what we do. We feed smaller meals more often. They digest them faster and they grow faster. We don't power feed females so they're 2,000 grams within a year. But if a female is hungry and she's ready to eat, we will feed her. And we breed 40% of females in year 2. Probably 40%.
So in year 2 going on year 3, basically. So yes, it's like
exactly within 24 to 28 months, 40% lay their first clutch. And they're not huge clutches, it'll be a 5-egg clutch. And we feed smaller meals more often. They digest it faster, and then they're on to the next meal. We don't feed one large meal every 10 days. We'll feed one small meal every 5 days. And that keeps them hungry for food, and it gets those females to the 1,500, the magical 1,500 grams within 20 months, if they don't go on their hunger strike, which often they do, and it is what it is. But we don't power feed as such, but we find that they thrive on those smaller meals. And we've got snakes now that are 10 years old that we fed the same way, and they are just as healthy as any others that we fed less or that we bought as adults that have grown up differently. So I try not to enter into the debate around what's power feeding, what's not power feeding, ASF versus rats versus mice versus whatever. We tend to give a rat a much smaller meal than that snake would normally have, unless it's a really large ball python, more frequently rather, and then feed them again because they'll be hungry again in 4 or 5 days time. And that is what has worked for us. And we've noticed no downstream side effects to the quality of the babies or the quality and health of the adults.
At the end of the day, there just has to be a happy medium, okay? Because in the wild, right, no matter what, especially nowadays, shit is scarce. There's hardly anything obese in the wild nowadays. Nothing's probably obese in the wild, Maybe it's a fucking anaconda or some shit. But I mean, for the ball python, for the most part, is not something capturing medium, large rats in the wild. It's not. They're not eating something that big, and I don't feel like they're really built. And this is coming from somebody who still feeds mediums. But I'm telling you, right now, as I'm feeding them, I don't feel good about it. I just don't feel like I don't feel like they're, yeah, they could take it. They're tanks, right? They could do it, but I feel like they could get big no matter what without having to feed a gigantic fucking medium large rat. I mean, I don't know, and the only reason why this really hit me hard recently, because I had one of my buddies on the show, Dennis Mcnamara, who's a zookeeper. So he's worked at the Virginia Beach Zoo for 22 plus years, and what he's done there has bred emerald basins back to back to back, right? And there's people out there, Ed Marino, the king of basins, man, but he's the only guy I know who could legitimately fucking breed basins like that. But Dennis is doing it, right? And Dennis, I saw these basins. I saw how big they are. They're fucking gigantic, right? And he doesn't feed anything bigger than a small rat. Rarely. I mean, he does do small rats, but then he'll also do jumbo mice. Like he'll go back and forth from mice. There's a certain point in time where he'll just feed them mice. And I'm like, dude, I think a lot of people are putting too much food into these fucking animals, and that's maybe why they're not giving healthy litters. Maybe that's why they're not even producing at all. I don't know. It just has me thinking a lot. Like, I feel like the food cycling and the food portion is way more important than people think it is. I don't know.
I don't know the answer. What I do know is that a snake in the wild is not going to turn down a large meal if it can eat it. It's also not going to turn down a small meal if it can eat it.
That's true.
And we have nothing larger than mediums in the freezer, and a medium will be fed to a 3,000 gram. We've got some 4,000 gram adults that will eat a medium, and sometimes they'll eat 2 mediums, and it barely touches the sides on a snake that big.
Right.
But the majority of rodents, and we probably look at an order to Cold Blooded Cafe and see that the vast majority are weaned and smalls, the vast majority, and they digest them quickly, and they are much more active. They don't just sit on the hot spot for a week and a half trying to digest this giant rat, and it works for us. It works for us.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, listen, what I say, I'm just, there's people out there that do what they do because it works for them, and there's so many different ways of doing things, right? I'm looking at things on how I keep this animal alive as long as possible. You know what I mean? I want anything to be here as long as, I don't want snake to dip out after 10 years. Snakes should be here at least 20 plus years. But it all depends on how you raise that snake. But before we get off the topic of wild talk, there's a super chat, and I want to make sure I get to it. Shout out to my boy right here, G3. But he has a question for you here, Sebastian. Do you have advice for new breeders to help contribute to maintaining wild type royal pythons?
What does the question mean, do you think? To help preserve, contribute to maintaining wild type?
I don't know, like new species in the wild or something. Like maybe that's what he's asking. Are you maybe like considering, or I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know what he really means by that.
So here's the thing. Ball pythons, and for those that have been to West Africa, and that is not me, I've not been to West Africa, but those friends that have, there are a lot of ball pythons in the wild. There are a lot. It is not, it's like in South Africa, you step every time you go into a national park, you step in on a puff adder. There are a lot of them, a lot. And I think in the wild, I don't think there's any risk of us taking ball pythons out the wild and damaging the natural population. It's not like shooting elephants for their ivory. Right. There are a lot of ball pythons in the wild, and I'm not sure. And I'm not, and maybe that's the question. I'm not quite sure, but I certainly don't think that that there's any damage to the ecology by taking out truly what are actually pretty small numbers of ball pythons in comparison to probably the hundreds of millions that there are across West Africa.
All right, Jacob doesn't have a weird question. I think he just wants to say, Sebastian spent months with me working on my game plan and where I wanted to take my projects before I spent a dime with him, which is respect to that. Look, you're helping people out without them even spending money with you, which you talked about what happened to you, which you passed it down to the homie Jacob. This is what this is all about. Shout out to the homie Jacob.
And just talk about Jacob for a second. So Jacob's become a good friend.
Mine too.
Over time. Jacob is a really good example of where this industry is going. So So we did spend months, and we spent months back and forth. And I remember when he first came to me with his game plan, and I didn't want to say to him that there was a better. I said to him, "There's a better way of doing it." I didn't want to say to him, "Your game plan, needs a lot of work," but there was a better way of doing it. And we went back and forth, and his thinking matured over time, over many months, and then eventually he came to me and said, "I'm ready to spend money. I want to buy from you." And there was no guarantee of a sale. I wasn't doing it because I wanted a sale. But he bought very strategically. He didn't buy a lot of snakes, but he bought, I can't remember the number, but 10 or 12 snakes, and spent, a good chunk of change on them. He has now produced Desert Ghost Clowns before I produced Desert Ghost Clowns. We have never produced a Desert Ghost Clown yet. We've yet to produce one. We've got, hopefully this year we'll produce a lot of them. But he went and did that in the space of 2.5 years. And by being extremely strategic about the snakes he's bought, he's now going to do extremely well for himself going forward. And that wasn't luck. That wasn't luck. It was the amount of thought that him and I put in it together, and the plan that he had going forward. Obviously, there's some luck involved in the breeding of the animals and everything else. Nature, it's going to screw you over Sebi regularly too. But there wasn't luck in the plan that he had. And he's produced some amazing animals this year. He gets a couple of clutches a year. But to produce a leopard Desert Ghost Clown in like your second or third clutch ever is pretty amazing. And he is the poster child for the new people coming into this industry that are not shy, with a lot of thought, to go and spend 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, 100 grand sometimes, and buy the right animals and be really thoughtful and work hard. I know he works really hard on those animals, and he's done it. He's now produced snakes that no doubt he'll hold back. They'll take him to the next level again. And so you don't need to go and spend $300,000. You can spend $30,000, buy 5-6 snakes, quality over quantity every single time. And Jacob is the absolute poster child for what can be done with thoughtful investment in this industry.
I met Jacob 2 years ago, Jacob, and I was like talking about what he had, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's going to be insane, like once that's ready to breed. And here we are, and it's breeding, and I'm like, bro, you're fucking killing it. And this is not even the start. Like, Jacob is going to be making some stupid noise. Like, I'm talking about some very noticeable noise within the next year or two. So first off, go follow my boy Civil Serpents, and just be ready for the heat that he's about to drop. My man right here, Sebastian's certifying this right now. So that's awesome, bro, because like you said, this is why I talk about how strategic this ball python game is. You could come and approach this so many different ways. You know what I mean? It's just really how you want to take it. I can tell you one thing: you take the slow, patient route, I don't think things are going to go bad for you at all. If you're in no rush and you just want to just kind of approach things as they come, and Jacob doing his research with you and taking his time, I mean, that's kind of got him where he's at right now. And and he knows he works like that. So respect to Jacob, man. That's awesome. It's good to know. So you there? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay,
yep.
Cool. All right, we got another super chat here. Mad Mac Pythons, South African breeder in the house. Sebastian, most exciting GHI pairing this year.
Hey, so fellow South African breeder, awesome. Yeah, there's a. I'll tell you what. I was in South Africa 2 weeks ago, and I did a talk at their biggest expo a couple of weeks ago. There's some guys doing some crazy shit out there. I tell you what, there's some cutting edge stuff there that's as good as anywhere in Europe or America. There's some very, very cool stuff, and they're just as passionate as we are. It's much smaller. The industry is much smaller, but there's some very cool stuff being done there. So GHI pairing this year, we are just trying to put GHI. So we don't actually have, we probably don't have a GHI pairing this year. We've got holdbacks. So we are trying to put GHI into Desert Ghost Clown, and it will then go back into, we've got a whole lot of monarch stuff that we're doing, a whole lot of monsoon stuff we're doing, and we'll go back into those in a couple of years. We've got holdback GHI double hits, and I think there's a GH Clown hit DG sitting in the rack that's going to be held back. So we've got maybe 3 or 4 GHI or snakes with GHI in them. But we are relentless about putting that GHI into those double, triple, quadruple recessive projects. So this year we may not produce a single GHI at all, but there's stuff ready for next year to put into those crazy projects.
Hey, Mad Mac, I'm going to be producing a shit ton of GHI. Holler at your boy, mjexoticscartal on Instagram. All right, anyways. So, right on, man. I mean, I got to ask you, do you get hit up a lot by a lot of people in South Africa or in the country of Africa a lot? Like, or you?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know anybody outside of South Africa in Africa that keeps ball pythons. You know, the guys that keep them or that go and export them out of West Africa are very different breed. You know, the guys in South Africa are just like the breeders in the US. They've got same setup, same facility. They're looking to breed crazy stuff. I don't know anybody outside of South Africa that keeps ball pythons or breeds ball pythons. But yeah, the guys in South Africa, I know most of them. You know, it's quite a small, tight-knit community, and I know most of them. And you know, we sent a couple of shipments to them over the years and supplemented a lot of the quality of the stock that they've got there. So, you know, there's some of Justin's animals there, there's some of mine animals there. I know a couple of other people export to South Africa too. So, you know, there is back and forth, and stuff comes out of South Africa. They're working on a couple of crazy dinka projects out of there that are starting to get traction in the US, and like multiple South African genes that are now for sale in the US. So it's hard to import. South African rules are really strict when it comes to importing into South Africa, but it's doable. And certainly, you know, it's now a global market as well. You know, the guys in South Africa, the market's small, you know, and to sell a $15,000 snake in South Africa is hard, but you can sell that snake in Singapore, you can sell it in Europe, you can sell it in America. And the guys that are doing well in South Africa are the guys that now have a global market, and they're exporting to Europe, they're exporting to Asia, they're exporting to the US, just like the guys in America that are doing well. It truly is a global market, and you need to look global.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's going to be my next topic, as far as my excitement of what's happening with certain markets starting to open up in different countries, right? You know, we have Canadian breeders that are on fire. And then speaking of Canadian breeders, shout out to Will Moros. Will Moros in the building, one of my favorite Canadian breeders by far. Thank you for being here, Will. But you know, you have different countries that are just killing it in the game, right? You know, you have Canada, even places in Europe, right? European lines of ball pythons that are being bred that are amazing. But for you personally, what are you most excited about? You know, as far as a market in a different country, like what country are you most hyped up for? You feel like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where is it growing? It's hard to answer. You know, is there a market in South America? I don't know.
Mexico's about to open up.
Mexico's about to open up, and certainly Mexico's, from certainly everything I hear from the guys that are starting to think about Mexico, it looks like a huge potential market. You know, where is China going to go? Is anybody in China buying snakes at the moment? I don't know.
I think I saw. You know somebody I always see selling stuff to, like to Asia. Like, I don't know if it's China, but I know Korea and certain countries in Asia. Is Corey Woods from He's from Canada, right? So shout out to Corey Woods, but I definitely see him shipping stuff over there. But you're right. I don't see why that market isn't more tapped in or more open. You know, I don't know what the missing link is there.
You know, we sell probably 10% to Asia, and that goes to Singapore, it goes to Taiwan, and it goes to South Korea, and the Philippines, actually, the Philippines as well.
And you deal with you do actually deal with somebody in those countries, or is there like a middle person that you're talking to?
Middle person. We've got CITES permits to export as well, but there's so many people now that export to Asia that it makes it easy. You know, there are 4 or 5 guys out of the US that act as middle people, and it makes it really easy for us to go and ship to those countries. We could do it ourselves, but it's tedious to do. But there certainly is a thriving market in that part of the world, and they're not buying $300 snakes. You know, they are spending significant amounts of money, and you know, I keep in touch via WhatsApp with a lot of them, and they're breeding some crazy stuff there, and certainly that market is strong. But you know, I don't know, the first person that cracks open China, and that feels like, to me, and I don't know what their laws are like. I don't know what's possible in China, but China feels like the great untapped market for ball pythons. You know, it's certainly a country that values high-end exotic things in general, and Western things that are desirable here, and it feels like a very natural fit. So I don't know who's going to break open China, but when somebody does,
can't wait.
Yeah, and you know, all those other countries in Southeast Asia have been broken open. So why should it not be China?
you got to admit, Sebastian, this is just one of many things to look forward to being in this industry. This is why it's such a great time to be in this game, because there's so many things that have not happened yet. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely right. And it feels like it's right in its infancy. It feels like, and it's matured. How much has matured in the last 8 years since I've been involved? At least the last 5 years. It's matured beyond recognition from a technology perspective, matured beyond recognition. But there feels like so much, we still like literally in the infancy. And goodness knows we'll be in 3 years, never mind 20 years.
So Sebastian, we're getting into a topic right now that, you know, I don't know how some people feel about this, but I definitely want to know what your input is, because yeah, you do have other things going on other than snakes, right? But does that mean that you feel like somebody can't just do the snakes and live a happy life? Like, do you feel like you can't live and sustain a life just off breeding snakes?
100% could. 100% could. There's no reason why somebody can't. If you got the passion and the time and the initial investment, 100% could. I am someone that loves life and loves a lot of things in life. And I've got my own software development company, and I love the team. I love the products we build. I love the complexity of what we do. And I don't want to give that up anytime soon, because I really, really enjoy it. There are other things in life I really enjoy. And I love doing the reptiles. I love it. Adam and I have a fantastic partnership, and certainly I can see a situation where potentially Adam gives up his job and does it full time, and I remain kind of half time. But I'm someone who needs just a ton of stimulation in my life, and I, you know, it's something that even if I did get rid of the software development company, which God willing one day will actually happen,
Right.
I would go and do a whole lot of other things as well as the snakes, because it is I see Heidi's comment there. Wow, 3 o'clock in the morning, and she is
The real one.
yeah, she is actually in South Africa. It's now what, 4:30 in the morning in South Africa. Yeah.
I wonder if she woke up early or she just hasn't slept. I wonder. I hope
we will have to ask her. I don't know. She can message and tell us. That's crazy. So yeah, I'm someone who yeah. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why you can't make a good living out of it if you thought about it and you've got that work ethic. You know, I was born. I'm an immigrant to the US. We were born in a family that had lots of love and lots of support, but we did not have money to throw around, and we just worked hard, really hard. And my wife's an immigrant too, and she works her behind off. I work my behind off, and it's part of my nature. And I will never stop being that way. I'm never going to retire. And so the snakes will be something I can see Adam and I do these snakes for the next 30 years, and we will, you know, he'll sometimes put more time in than I will. I'll sometimes put more time in than he will, and life gets in the way from time to time. And you just, you know, have this pragmatic view to life that you put in the time that you've got at the time in your life, and it goes up and it goes down. So yeah, I mean, how many people in the US are making a full-time living out of reptiles now? It must be, you know.
I mean, it definitely has grown. I can tell you much, because I'm definitely one of them, and I didn't see this happening. But I mean, I'm looking at it to where I know I can make such a good living off reptiles that it scares me. Like, I don't want to have to look at my sole income being off the reptiles, even though it's so easy. That's why I go so hard on the podcast. I do see income coming from the podcast, and I rather like this. You know, I don't want to. I guess this is my job, even though I don't look at it as a job. But this is what I'm pushing forward to, collecting a check versus making money off. Because, like I said, whatever I make off the reptiles, I want to put it back in the reptiles. I don't want to put it in anything else. And I can tell you right now, like majority, I want to say more than half. Just shy of half of what I made last year went to my wife for a down payment for a house, which we didn't even fucking get, by the way. But still, like, there's, you know, we have money that's put away that came from the snakes, and I'm blessed. But I don't know, like, you do hear people who've been in this industry for a long time that suggest that you don't rely on snake breeding as a full-time thing because it's not reliable, you know, and the list goes on. But I see otherwise, man. I really do. I can tell you right now, I'm tapped in. I'm talking to a lot of people who are doing this full time, and they're happy. I feel like you don't even need to be fucking busting out 100 clutches. You can make this happen with 50 clutches. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're doing it right. So I don't know.
You know, if you invest wisely, there's no reason why a clutch can't be worth $30,000. And you need what? 32 clutches to make $1 million a year? 32 clutches at 30K a clutch. It's
Crazy.
it's not impossible at all. The 5K per baby is absolutely realistic. You're going to have to invest heavily up front, and there's going to be a couple of years where it's going to be hard, but then the returns will start to come. And you don't have to have a 5,000 square foot facility. You could produce 30 clutches a year with 100 adults. And you know, you're still going to work hard. It's still not going to be easy money. And anyone who thinks ball python breeding or reptiles in general, animals in general, is easy money, it's not. It's not. You've got to put in the hours. You've got to have the work ethic. Otherwise, you just won't produce the clutches, and the animals will suffer and won't work. But it's not impossible to make $1 million a year with 30 clutches. Nowadays, it's not impossible at all. If you are heading towards the double, quadruple, triple recessive projects, that's where the value is going to continue to be, with strategically adding in the codoms that make those animals really pop.
Right. Now, I mean, with that being said, is it to the point where there's certain females that you only produce, or excuse me, have like maybe only need them for 1 year, and then that next year, I mean, no, like they're not there for you that long? Like, is that happening at all, where, you know, because you're shooting for so much shit down the road where they can only do so much for you at that point, and you just have to go with the heads? I mean, are you dealing with that?
Yeah, so it's really hard. So we've bought a lot of double recessive females, a lot of desert ghost clowns, desert ghost pieds, that we want to keep for the next 10 years, 15 years, because we know we'll produce and buy power males that will continue to plug into those females. And it's felt almost, you know, a couple of people have said to me, it feels like an arms race at the moment, that the top breeders are stockpiling these double recessive females because they know what's coming down the line. And we've bought a lot of them. We produced a few of them ourselves, but we've also bought a lot of them, and we've got them there for the long term. But, you know, those double recessive females, those double het recessive females, a lot of those we've grown up for 3 years, and we are literally going to produce 1 clutch from them. And we're going to hope to hit the jackpot with a male or a female that we can hold back. And you're right, we are going to sell them. We absolutely are going to sell them. You know, the point I made earlier, you asked me about, did we buy adults initially? And we did buy adults, and quite a lot of them we did well out of. You know, we made significant, you know, 10 times the price that we paid for that adult, because we put a really powerful male to them, and we then sold that adult female as a breeder female. We then sold the babies. We took that cash and we went and bought the stuff that we wanted to. We're stopping that now because it just, you know, we a lot of those adults weren't great quality, but they did well for us. And certainly new breeders, if you thought about who you buy from, and people are selling adults because they're upgrading, not because the adult is giving issues, you can absolutely make good money out of them. But yeah, we are going to grow up females. I can see it. We're going to grow up females for 3 years, 4 years, get 1 clutch, we're going to sell them. We are. Right. And it's going to be like, and it's painful, because how many times do you clean out that snake to get it to 2,000 grams? How many times do you feed it? You know, it's 150 meals and 300 cleanings, and then you're going to breed it once and sell it. But financially, it's the right decision to make. It's the right, especially if you get the male you want or the female you want out of them.
I want to ask a question I haven't really asked on a New Breeder on the Block series. Almost no ball python breeder, I don't think I've asked this, because I kind of feel like it's relevant, especially because I do believe in ultrasound with like the chondros, but like the ball pythons, I feel like I'd rather just be excited and just see what I'm seeing, right, to a certain extent. But I'm also noticing things that I feel like you should keep track of that could help you, right? So that being said, how do you guys approach note keeping and whatnot? Like, what are you guys tracking? Let's talk about what you guys are keen about keeping notes of.
It's bloody hard. It's very hard.
It's so, I mean, because I have OCD, but that shit's where I'm like moving so fast, and I'm like, oh shit, what was that? And I forget. And okay, one thing about my OCD is like, I hate if I look at a card and I forget to write something down. That really fucks with me, because I don't want to make something up. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be accurate. So
let me answer it differently. Let me tell you what we don't track.
Okay.
So we don't track sheds. We don't track poops.
Okay.
We don't actually track meals. We don't track when a snake has eaten. But we do, you know, we only got 120 adults, so it's easier for us. And if a snake isn't eaten by the third time, we'll just take a little clip and we'll put it on the cage to know that that's a snake we've got to work on. And then what we'll do is we'll try it on a live and we'll get it back onto food again. But all we really we don't track when the babies are eating either, because we get a feel for that really quickly. We track our pairings obsessively, and we map out the pairings. We've got a spreadsheet, and we map out those pairings 6 months in advance, and we worry it constantly, and we change this and we change that, and we shuffle stuff around, and we certainly track that obsessively. We track our locks obsessively, and we track when they've laid obsessively. So you can come and ask us, you bought a snake from us 5 years ago. We can tell you, we can show you a photograph of the lock, hopefully, if we manage to capture one. We can tell you who the parents were. We can tell you where the parents came from. We can tell you where they hatched. We can tell you, and we can tell you the genes on the snake, because we obsessively keep records. We obsessive about record. We OCD about record keeping. The rest of the recording of stuff, because we don't have the time to do it, we don't record meals. We don't record anything beyond that. Where we struggle, here's where we struggle, and here's where the industry really struggles, is I don't have any ability to keep a wait list. So when anyone contacts me, say, next year, can I get a GHI head clown head pied? And I go, keep an eye on my Instagram and ask me in a year's time. How do you keep track of it? And like almost every day someone says, I know you sold the foddy on Morph Market 6 months ago. I'd love one in a year's time. And I physically can't track it. So I really struggle with tracking that. I struggle with, to go and build an incubator is going to be, to build an incubator page like someone like Justin and some others do. That's really expensive and hard to do. I really struggle with that. I struggle to drill down into my collection. So I don't know, how many pies have we got in our collection? I don't know. So when it comes to pairings, it becomes an iterative process. Let's try that. Let's try that. Oh, let's move that there. Let's move that there. How many males? How many females can this male cover? He's a strong male. He can cover. We have males that cover 15 females. Our biggest, strongest males cover 15 females, whereas the weaker ones, the younger ones, cover two or three. And there's constantly. But I can't look at anything. There's no way of me saying we've got 73 pies and 24 clowns and 24 this. And these are the males we've got, and therefore the common sense would say breeder with this or this or this. So there's no tool for us to be able to do that. So I struggle with planning and strategizing for the future, because there are no tools other than a spreadsheet and our heads. And I've got Adam to bounce ideas off as well. And him and I are constantly back and forth bouncing ideas. And we old school effectively, we use Google Sheets. And if anyone hacked our Google Sheets, you'd see a lot of information there. But like we basically have one giant Google Sheet. And it works, but it's so crude. And there's so much more that could be done. We could do things so much better than we've got at the moment. And no doubt that's going to change in time as technology improves. But we just don't have the bandwidth to track feeding. And that may be something that we probably should do. But if someone buys a baby for us, they say, how many meals has the baby had? I say, I honestly don't know. And they ask me, when last did it feed? And I'll just say, Adam did a feeding last Thursday, and it probably ate. And he'll be able to tell me as well, because he's got a great memory. He'll say, yep, it ate. He can always tell me, because he always remembers. He knows every damn snake.
So the way, it's funny you say that, because the way I track my hatchlings, like if I have all my hatchlings in a rack, right? And obviously there's a clear slate, like everything is blank as far as meals. I track their first meal, okay?
Yes.
And I always make sure there's a 1. 1 means they ate. I don't track anything unless they don't eat the next one. Like for whatever reason, if they don't eat the next one, I'll just put like a red circle, okay? But if everything else eats, that just indicates that they had their first meal and they're on track. Unless something falls off and they don't, then I'll put a red mark and I'm like, okay, well, this one isn't eating, right? But you can't just keep up like, okay, this is meal number 12, and let me go to my fucking next hatchling when I have 200 hatchlings to go. Like that's a lot of time. That's time consuming, like big time. You know what I'm saying?
Very time. And we've got a similar. I think everyone has their own way of doing it. We've got the same. We've got little clips, and we've got yellow if it's on live mice. We've got then green if it's on live rats, and we've got blue if it's on frozen thawed. And we just put the clips on, and if they haven't eaten a meal, we move the clip to the middle of the tub for if they haven't eaten by the second meal, so we know to pay attention to it. And then we deworm everything probably about once every 2 years as well. And that's a massive undertaking. And we've got little stickers that we do slowly as we go through the whole collection. As we deworm, we put stickers on. And that's probably it. We might do a little bit of, if there's appetite stimulant needed, occasionally we'll put a little sticker on for a snake that needs that and that gets that. Or if there's a snake on antibiotics, very occasionally we'll track it with a Post-it note. I'll write down the date it needs its injections. I'll put it on a Post-it note. And that works for us. And we'll take magnets. Once a snake is locked, we'll put a magnet on above their tub, so we know that they've locked. I can look at all the tubs and just go, that's locked, that's locked. And when they've had a second lock, I'll put another magnet on. And when we ultrasound, we'll literally put a Post-it note with a date, and these are the follicles. And it's probably not the smartest. And I work in technology, and I'll probably look at it and I'm like, as old school as they come, but it works for us until all the Post-it notes fall off.
To your knowledge, Sebastian, do you know of any scenarios or situations where you've had a male going to so many females, and like, this is my first, let me tell you my situation for the first time this year, right? Jacob sent a male over to me. We have like a little project going on, me and him, right? Yes. And this male was fucking great shape, smashing small rats, very fucking just ready to rock and roll, right? And sure enough, man, this guy went to town, right? And then he shut off food, and then I kept breeding him, I think within the next like 3 months, like I just kept breeding him, and like I think he only had one meal in between, and I don't want to say it was a really big meal, but all of a sudden I just noticed that he became real fatigued, like started slowing down, and then he actually got hit with a little bit of RI, like he had RI, and I was like, holy shit, I've never had RI from a ball python before, so I obviously took him to the vet, got Fortaz. And got him going, but I'm curious, have you guys ran into any of that yet, or that you know of?
Yeah.
Or?
And even worse. I'm share a story that Adam and I have never told anyone. So we had a valuable male that we bought out of Europe, and he was a great breeder for us. He produced 3 or 4 clutches, and he wouldn't eat throughout the breeding. And the males that eat obviously carry on breeding and they do well. And he wouldn't eat, and he wouldn't eat, and he stopped breeding, and we cleaned, and we obsessively cleaned him in the tub so there's no smell of the females and everything else. And he wouldn't eat, and he wouldn't eat. And eventually we took him to Dr. Stahl, because like, this is just so unusual. And that snake died that day at Dr. Stahl's. And he was a $6,000 male. And Dr. Stahl said, can we do an autopsy? I said, yeah, we should do an autopsy. I want to find out. Right. And he cut the snake open, and the snake had intestinal worms. And the worms had first of all, it damaged his colon, but secondly, had debilitated him so much that he wasn't strong enough to be able to deal with it. And we then immediately went and dewormed the entire collection and made sure we didn't sell anything for a couple of months. So dewormed everything. But it was a real heartbreaker for us. And we thought we'd done everything right, and we kept on trying to feed him, and he just would not eat. And in the end, it was a lesson for us to, so first of all, deworm every couple of years, and it's tedious but easy to do. Right. And secondly, it does happen. And, those males do die. You can overbreed them, and they become so tired that they just won't eat, and they die. Yeah. And so we're very careful now. And we do have, we've got 3,000 gram males that literally will go to 15 females, 2 locks. If they'll do 30 locks in a season, and they carry on eating, and they don't care less. It is a couple of power males that just nothing stops them. But they are the exception.
I've had that luck for the most part. Nothing but these males that don't stop eating. They just keep pounding. And this is the first year where, and he wasn't the only one that went off food. Remember I told you there was those other snakes that just shut off, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck? But it's because, like, obviously I was feeding them like females, so they were already pretty big. You know what I'm saying? And they hit sexual maturity where I'm sure pheromones were in the building, and they're just like, fuck the feeding. Yeah. I'm ready to rock and roll. But those snakes, once they did their action, or, like one of those snakes, right? One of those snakes, I actually started pairing up, and dude, he was 1,000 grams. Like I said, preparing him because I thought he was a female, right? But he just went to town, started breeding, and literally went off food, I want to say a month ago, but I could just see how much strength he had, but I also took in consideration, I was like, well, you already know what's going on with this guy right here, so don't fuck this up again. And I played it safe. I was giving him breaks. Like I would pair him up, and I wouldn't pair him up for like a month. I would let, and sure enough, he did take, like, he started eating, and he's fine. Like nothing happened. And I just feel like I spread them too thin. Like I knew there was a point in time where I could have just gave them a break and say, fuck it. But I was so worried that I wasn't going to get enough locks in or whatever. So, you live and learn,
And they go downhill really. It looks fine. And then they suddenly go downhill really, really quickly. Yeah. And it is possible to breed them to death. And so I am very, we've pushed our males for the last 3-4 years just so incredibly hard because we didn't have the money to invest in enough males. And we pushed our males so hard. And that male did die. And I feel responsible for that. But we've learned a lot of lessons over it. And we certainly now have twice the number of males that we had previously with the same number of females. And I feel a lot more relaxed now. So if a male does start to slow down, I'm not going to push him. That's fine. You go out of circulation. You can relax for 6 months, eat your meals, calm down, and then we'll think about it in the next season. But we've pushed those males very hard. And it's paid dividends for us, but we've cut it fine every time, really, really fine in terms of running out of enough males.
Right. Now, I mean, with that being said, like let's kind of, and this is a wrap up question before we get into the hot seat questions, okay, Sebastian? For anyone out there new into this, and let's say there's people like just maybe putting their toe into the water, right? Like maybe spending 10 grand. Buying little things at a time, but maybe they have that 100K, maybe they're like, fuck, maybe I should do this. You know what I mean? And let's just say, for instance, if you were to come into this game today, let's just say if you knew, and let's say you have all this knowledge, right? What would be an approach, or how do you advise someone to approach the ball python game when it comes to investing this much money, 6 figures?
That is a great question. And I'm asked that a lot. And there's a guy in Baltimore who asked me that exact question last week. And what I'd say is I'd invest in the correct setup. Don't cut corners in the setup. Make sure that you get the cages that you need. And if you make them yourself, that's okay. But make sure you do it thoughtfully and that the setup works, because that slows you down significantly. If you're spending 3 times the amount of time cleaning and looking after the snakes because they're knocking the water bowl over every 2 days, that sucks time away from actually feeding them and growing them up. And I then do what we've done. I'd buy the most expensive snakes you can afford in the projects you want to be in, the projects that you think are going to have a future, and buy the most number of, you'd spend the most amount of money on individual snakes that you can possibly afford. Don't go and buy, if you want to spend 100 grand, don't go buy 50 snakes at 2 grand each. Go and buy 10 snakes at 10 grand each. And look long term. Go and buy, go and buy Desert Ghost clowns and Desert Ghost pied females and buy the power male that nobody else has got, and do quality over quantity. We are absolutely laser focused on quality over quantity, because that's where in the long term, it's the same old cliche. It costs the same amount of money to grow up a $10 normal as it does a $50,000 ball python. They eat the same number of meals. It's the same number of shit you're going to clean up, same number of cages you're going to clean, and it takes the same amount of effort. And you want to try and obsessively produce the highest value clutches you can, and as a result, the coolest snakes you can. How exciting is it to be able to cut an egg knowing there's a good chance there's a triple recessive visual animal in there? It's nuts. And even 3 years ago, no one could have dreamt of it. And Justin's produced one, and a couple of others that are produced too. And that is mind blowing. And now it's almost becoming out like, what's the next thing? And to be able to produce those animals and know that there's a handful of people in the world that can do that is very exciting. We basically, the ball python industry is basically gambling. Each time those eggs are laid and you cut them, you're just gambling. And that's why it's so addictive, because you got that chance. Jacob had the chance on the 15K snake, and he did it, and he hit the odds, and like shit, and he's cut that egg on the 50K snake, like shit. Like you pull the lever on the slot machine and shit, 15K.
Son of a bit.
and there's many times where you pull the lever and there's a $75 normal double hit, and that's okay. That's okay too.
You got to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Damn. Listen, man, this has been an amazing 2 hours. Thank you so much, Sebastian. We have hot seat questions before we let you head out, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Throw them my way.
Yeah, man. Let's go and get these in. And best thing to do is not give me an explanation. Let's just give me the answers, and we'll keep moving, okay?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Hot seat questions for Sebastian. Showcase Serpents coming in hot. Are you ready for these, Sebastian?
I am. Shoot.
All right, here we go. Frozen thought or live?
Frozen thought.
A cut or no cut?
Cut.
What day?
55. Adam would say no cut.
Okay.
And we have endless debates. Yeah.
Adam's sitting down on round 2, just so you know. We're getting
Yeah. No, we definitely need to get him in. Yeah.
Let's see. Pre-first shed meal or post-first shed meal?
Post.
Yay imports or boo imports?
No, yeah, imports.
One reptile you would import today, any reptile.
If I could find a quadruple recessive male out of some other country in the world, I would.
Really? A ball python? God damn it.
A ball python. I'm looking every day. Every day I'm looking.
Die hard. I love it. Okay, one reptile nobody should ever import ever again.
A normal ball python.
Leave it in the wild. Yay sports or boo sports?
Yay.
Favorite sport?
Rugby.
Nice. Rugby. Oh, go figures. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Springbok, South African national team.
Dude, some of the tough, like I grew up around some tough athletes, okay, but nobody was as tough as my fucking Samoan homies who were rugby players. They were fucking so tough, bro. And luckily, I had some of the most savagest, biggest Samoans that lived in Bellingham, Washington, on my football team. And bro, we would just murder people, like just because of those two guys. Like
they are legendary. That Samoan rugby team is legendary.
It's epic. Let's see. Yay alcohol or boo alcohol?
Oh, yay.
Favorite alcohol beverage?
Red wine.
Ooh, respect. I feel you on that. All right, cool. Steak or fish?
Steak.
Favorite cut of steak?
Ribeye.
Favorite European line of ball python? Like a morph out there. Say that? Monarch. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah. The Europeans are killing Monarch. Yeah.
Van Halen or Sammy Hagar?
Oh, Van Halen.
Respect. Little word association. First thing to come to mind: milk.
Baby.
Cocoa.
Husk.
Mites.
Kill me.
FedEx shipping.
Keeps the industry going. It's great.
First time ball python breeder.
To mention somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, Jacob.
Oh, respect. Stuck shed.
Sorry, say that again.
Stuck shed.
Soak.
Instagram.
No. Increase humidity. Increase humidity. Yeah.
Instagram trolls.
Block.
If you had to get rid of one platform forever, Sebastian, I mean forever, is it going to be Instagram or Facebook? Which one has to go?
Oh, geez. TikTok.
No. TikTok is for the fucking degenerates. We're talking about Facebook, because you got to understand, there's some crucial stuff. Even though Facebook is toxic, there's some important stuff on Facebook. Like, there's a reason why I have a Facebook. Let's be real. But let's just say it came down to one. You have to pick one. No two. Which one needs to go?
Personally, Instagram. From a business perspective, Facebook.
I need you to pick one, my man. I'm sorry. You're not going to go out like this.
Facebook. Facebook.
All right. Woo! Way to go, Sebastian. Hey, bro, we had well over 100 people at one point in this fucking show showing you mad love. What do you have to say to everyone out there showing you support, everyone tapped in on this podcast?
Massively grateful, everybody. I saw a whole lot of names I recognize there, and the support in this industry for each other is phenomenal. I very much appreciate all of you. Feel free to reach out. I'll hopefully be at TINLEY, not Venim, but I'll be at TINLEY hopefully in October. Love to meet people. I'll put it on Instagram if you're going to be there. I'd love to meet as many of you as possible. And MJ, let's do an opening with you. Seriously, let's do it. I will give you timelines. I'll keep in touch and let's do it. And you can go and visit Ozzy at the same time. He's 45 minutes up the road.
Awesome. Listen, what's your? Do you ever have any intentions on visiting a reptile super show, like coming out to the West Coast and tapping in over here at all?
I'd love to. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. The only one we go to occasionally is TINLEY, and it's mainly because of time more than anything else. But yeah, we'd absolutely love to.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, we'll talk more about it, and that's a wrap Thank you so much, Sebastian. Showcase Serpents, ladies and gentlemen. Show it up for Sebastian, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right, bro. Have a good night. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Later, bro. Wow, amazing show. Thank you, everyone who tapped in. All the love and support was real on this one. I appreciate it. If you happen to come in towards the end and did not hit that like button, don't be a Gilligan. Don't be one of those weird ones. Hit that like, man. My boy Sebastian killed that shit. Amazing episode. I appreciate everyone who showed some activity in the live chats. Live chats were up and jumping. Appreciate all the super chats. You guys are real ones. And yes, man, again, an amazing new breeder on the block in the books. And again, this Thursday night, man, this is just the start of the week, baby. Let's go. Because Thursday night, it's going to get hot. The collaboration. Well, hold on. Let me say, at the end of the month, I'm going to be dropping 2 collaboration series, okay? Be ready, man. I hope you guys are ready for this, okay? So Thursday, as you guys know, Chris Eaton, right? The collaboration with Trap Talk with MJ, Snakes and the Fat Man. That's going to be happening this Thursday night. And I am so excited to have this shit go down because this is going to be, like I said, a monthly segment going down on the last Thursday of every month. Okay? So go down, set your reminders for that. Now, that being said, I'm also bringing another segment, which is going to be happening on the last Sunday of every month. And I'm bringing you 2 people I highly look up to. One of the persons on this segment has ride with me on the podcast before, and I'm finally able to bring him back. But we're having another homie who's going to be tapping in with this. So I bring you the last Sunday of every month, the Shitty Boys podcast with my boy Andrew Acevedo and Stephen Cush. Can you believe you're going to have us 3 on the same podcast once a month? You guys are not ready for this kind of heat. It's going to go down. Set your reminder, baby. This Sunday. No, wait. Is it next Sunday? No, this coming Sunday. Shit, let's go. Set your reminder. Coolest reptile podcast in the world. Very excited to bring this stuff to you guys because, like I said, it's not all about, I don't know. Like, I love the guests, but there's so many other people tapped into other things that we need to hear from them. And my homies are super tapped in. So just be ready for this. It's going to be amazing. You guys don't want to miss this. Shout out to my boy Sebastian. Shout out to you if you came through. Shout out to you if you hit that like button. And thank you again for all my reoccurring viewers, all my reoccurring subscribers. Shout out to my Patreon family members. I love you guys. You guys are my heart. And I'll check you guys this Thursday. Bring your bubble wrap if you're a sensitive little bitch. Because me and Chris Eaton ain't showing no mercy.